Well, I didn't necessarily think you would turn me away, but I didn't think that you were actually going to be actively engaged to the
Yeah,
extent that
yeah, like right off the bat, really. Like, so you DM'd me and I expressed interest in interacting with you, and then I only actually saw like this message, funny enough, like a couple months ago, 3 months ago, when I went back and read over like old conversations. I saw that like you had sent like a follow-up message where you asked me my favorite sensory experience, but I didn't see that message at the time. So I just like dove into like this mad like TED Talk rant about human beings like misinterpreting one another constantly and making assumptions about like everybody else's intention and experience and perception, but being like people being isolated and like not communicating properly, and then bringing up like the haptics thing, you know, like a major percentage, like 80+% of our communication is non-verbal. We communicate primarily like haptically, or in things like, you know, tone of voice and like pacing and so on, rather than the words themselves. So like when we read these online posts, we think that we understand like what people are saying, but we're missing the majority of the context and like all of the delivery. Like we just exist like that, believing in full confidence that we understand fundamentally somebody else and what they think, but we don't. And like no wonder the world is so divided. So I went into like that massive rant like at you, and like I guess a connection like followed from there.
we established rules. I lived and died by those rules, which were to be completely open and honest and not tiptoe around what we have to say. Yeah, that became like a very important thing that I would hang on to when I would decide what I would tell you. I pretty much told you everything. But on the haptics conversation, that inspired like the poem, because I would think about that in terms of sex and what would be communicated in that. And then I wrote the poem like just from a feeling from having communicated and the idea that we were forming a connection. Like that was specifically what we decided we're gonna do. And I feel like I was honest about how I felt, and it was kind of extreme. And it turned out that all of that stuff came true.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, like just accessing like prophecy.
Yeah. But even that, I think, speaks to what your point is, like the added context. So even the context of hearing voice, because we sent a lot of voice notes initially. We did some text, but also voice notes. And so having the context of voice gives so much more than just words.
Yeah, I think the voice notes were important, but I remember being like so intimidated, like so afraid to send you the voice notes initially. Yeah.
You didn't come off that way. You came off like an authority. I was really impressed because you asked me. I didn't send the voice note first. It was you, and you asked if you wanted to hear your thoughts on the poem, and if you wanted me to send the notes, photos of your handwritten notes, which steal my heart, or a voice. I asked for and you gave me both. But your voice was so strong. You did not sound nervous. I was nervous, actually, after hearing.
That's wild. At the time, like, I knew I wanted to connect with you, and like, you'd sent me the link to the like poem prose prophecy that you did, and like, I wanted to connect with you on that, on your, what did you call it? Your not literary dick pic, which is just beautiful. You put in like some kind of like energy or like effort into like connecting with me and like sharing that with me, and maybe even in writing it at all. And I felt like I needed to, not like out of obligation or expectation, but like as a pull or a drive within myself. Like I needed to try and match that. Like I needed to give of myself in the same way. So like I wanted to, from my own perception from your writing, even though like that's not my forte, take the risk of sharing that with you. But obviously because I had like known about you beforehand, and like you have a little bit of like a following, that you have like a certain energy about you, I was a little bit intimidated because like it's easy to, I guess, hide behind text, but like to reveal yourself in words where the person on the receiving end can hear the strength of your voice, the airflow, the flow of the words, like your pacing, like how hard or soft it is, the words that you use, how free flowing or concise like your thoughts are, and so on. Like it's quite revealing, right? So I suppose like that was like exposing myself in a way, and like I had so much like respect for you. The reason I came off as like I guess strong, maybe even slightly like overconfident even, is because like I felt this like intimidation and like this like weird like flashes of like fangirling basically. And I was like, fuck that, like absolutely not. Like I will not reveal this weakness, I will not reveal this vulnerability, and like raged against that in just unnecessary defiance. So that
Yeah, I wouldn't have known. You raged against it so well. I thought
well,
like,
thank you.
yeah, I just felt like I was there to learn something from you. And you're like, you're being charitable with your time towards me. Some weird guy off the internet.